Assalamu alaikum and welcome. Hello to How to Start a Charity with Always Network. I am Aisha Tariq. I'm the founder and chair of Always Network. We are excited to have our first event for 2021, and we are in partnership today with Charity Excellence by Ian McLintock. He's the founder of Charity Excellence. He'll introduce himself a bit later. So Ian is controlling the slides today. And we also have Fatma, who's our AWN support. If you have any troubles, please do write in the chat box, and then Fatma will be able to help you where possible. So without further ado, Ian, can we go to the next slide, please? Yes, okay. A little bit about AWN. We support small not-profits with an annual turnover of less than 1 million who are working with the diverse Muslim community in the UK. And so we will support charities, organisations, any not-for-profits who are working in any area, whether it's homelessness, or you're working with people who are suffering from alcohol or drugs misuse, ex-offenders, youth, empowerment, women, domestic violence, any areas that you're working in, we are happy to be helping you. And so we do this via workshops, networking and seminars. And also you can check more about us on awn.org.uk. Ian, next slide, please. This is interesting. So basically AWN's previous events have been Meet the Funders. This is our flagship event that we host every year. Unfortunately, we didn't last year, but inshallah, we are organising one for this year. Meet the Funders is where, as it says, charities meet funders, which are mainstream funders such as we had National Lottery, Heritage Fund, Tudor Trust, Both Workers Foundation, Lloyds Bank Foundation, Vision Foundation, and many more, which you can check out on our website. We also had the launch of AWN, where we actually said, hey, we're here now. And we also had a bid writing webinar as well, how to write an effective bid application form, which is very vital if you want to access those funds. And we know that it's very, very difficult and it is quite competitive, and we want to make sure that you're writing the right jargons and you're conveying your project, your message quite clearly. So that's what we usually talk about in the bid writing application. And we also touched upon digital marketing webinar. And we know that for small charities, social media is like one of the best platforms to use to market your own organization. It's free, it's accessible, and everybody is using it. So we actually introduced that webinar to discuss how it was best used, how best to use the digital marketing webinar. And then we also had Charity Mingle networking event. That was where charities exactly did that. They mingled, and we find that it's very important for charities to network and have peer-to-peer support. And it went very well, alhamdulillah. Charities were just felt that there was interesting to share experiences and understand that they're not the only one that are in the sort of boat of the challenges that they face. And yeah, they learned so much. They walked away with potential partnerships and collaboration, and just having a support network is very vital anyway in the sector. We had a lottery webinar event as well last year. We found it was very interesting to discuss whether it's acceptable for small charities to accept lottery funding. I won't go into too much about that, but it is on our YouTube social media channel, AWN. I think if you Google or type in Always Network on YouTube, and it should be on also on our website as well. And we also had another bid writing workshop. So there is like a vast amount of events that we are covering, and this year we're starting off with how to start up a charity. So the house rules for today is that we are not having mics on and videos on for attendees. So there is like concentration on the presentation. If you do have any questions, you can also write it in the chat box. Some of the questions may be answered during this presentation, but we are leaving that to the end, so in the Q&A section. So if we don't manage to cover all the questions, we will ask Ian to answer it for us and maybe send an email out to everyone after the event. But let me hand it over to Ian, who is the founder of Charity Excellence, and enjoy the session.
Good morning. I'm Ian. I've been a volunteer for over 40 years, and I have lots of very posh professional qualifications, which aren't actually any measure of intelligence, but I have distilled them down into a single, incredibly powerful business technique, and that is ask people what they want and then give it to them. And it works surprisingly well. And that's basically what Charity Excellence does. It's a toolkit that's online, and it enables anyone to join, and you can use it very quickly and simply. And the thing that everybody really likes about it is everything on it is completely free. At no point do you get asked for your credit card. Now, what we're going to do today, a lot of the information out there is extremely confusing, but it's not that complicated, but there is a lot of detail. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to show you how to register your charity or anything like that. I am going to walk you through the entire process of deciding how to go about setting up a charity and how to make that charity successful. With the webinar will come a resource pack. There are 30 Charity Excellence resources behind it, including 5 do-it-yourself toolkits. And when you go into a toolkit, if you need something like a trustee declaration form or a constitution, there are links in the toolkit that will take you directly to the material you need. So it will walk you through the whole thing. There's no need to take any notes. Literally, it's about understanding the presentation. And just to make sure that everybody stays awake, I will be asking you questions, answers in the chat. So what are we going to do? The first question really is, do you need to start a charity at all? If you do decide you want to start your own organization, what sort of structure are there? There are a number, there's lots written about it. It's actually fairly straightforward. And then how do you go about it? How do you create that charity or social enterprise? And the bit that everyone finds difficult is, how do I then find the funding? And we'll finish at 11:10 if I manage to do this properly, and then there'll be opportunities for Q&As. So poll time should be coming up. No? Oh yes, we're there. So if you would like to complete that, that'll help everyone. Okay, so roughly split between haven't started, but I'm thinking about it. Right, do you really need to have your own charity? So, first question for the poll is, how many non-profits are there in the UK? If anyone wants to drop any guesses into the chat. Nope. There are about 500,000. Most people think it's 165,000, but in actual fact, it's roughly about 500,000, of which about 100,000 are social enterprises. And everybody thinks about registered charities. Actually, you can very quickly set up an unregistered charity, and there are about 100,000. So if you've got a little group in the mosque that's running a class for kids for a bit of fun, and it's just done by a few people informally with a little constitution, that's an unregistered charity. And in law, it is a charity. But what about working for an existing one? So what you can actually do is, instead of starting your own charity, you could volunteer for an existing charity, and you can search in the local area and literally do a volunteer. Now, what are the benefits of that? And the answer is, if you set a charity up, you need to have trustees, you need to run it, you almost certainly need a bank account, you may have to do reporting to the Charity Commission if you're going to register with them. There's a lot of administration comes with it, and you're stuck with that. Whereas if you volunteer with an existing charity, you don't get any of that. And they've got all that, and they will claim the gift aid, and you have the opportunity to tap into their networks, and you may be supported by them. So certainly think about that. But why would you set up another one? It may be that, for example, there isn't that kind of service in the local area, or there's specific needs. I was speaking to someone, and they set up a halal food bank. And they said, well, you know, there's a really good food bank in the local area. And I said, well, why would you do that? And they said, well, actually, the food bank was really good. They were very positive. And they said, you know, we were quite happy to give people, ensure that people don't get non-halal food. But of course, the problem was, for people like me, how would I know exactly what is halal food? And I wouldn't be completely sure. And the Muslim community was concerned that they may end up going to the food bank and being given food that wasn't. And that was stopping them going to the food bank. So what they did is they set up a halal food bank, and everyone could be absolutely confident that what they were taking from that food bank was the right way to do it. Another alternative could have been, for example, if you could have worked with the existing food bank and had Muslim volunteers working for it, and run it in a way that it was quite clear that when people came in, they would be given the right halal food. Now, there is no right answer to that. It's a question of thinking about what would be the best way to do this. How could I best support the local people? And if you're going to do it, what exactly are you going to do? Because there are lots of different types. So, which structure should you choose? But first we start with the legal bits, becoming a legal ego. Incorporation is from the Latin, meaning a body. And if your organization is incorporated, it becomes a person in the eyes of the law. And a person can enter into contracts and soon be sued. Why is that important? And the answer is, if you're an unincorporated charity, and you enter into a contract, or heaven forbid that you're sued, they cannot sue the charity, they will sue you, because the charity doesn't exist as far as the law is concerned. Now, I'm not too worried about that, because the law is fairly relaxed. It realizes you're volunteers, it knows that you're not experts. I mean, look at Kids Company, they were found innocent and they were awful. So be aware that when you incorporate, there are real benefits. And it's called the veil of incorporation. And what it does is it limits liability. So if you fill in your constitution, it will ask you what the trustee's liability is. Normally you would set it as nothing, or £1 or something like that. And what that means, if the charity is sued or the charity becomes insolvent, the most that you will have to pay would be £1. And that's why incorporation of an organization is really important. You're a volunteer, you're doing this out of the goodness of your heart. You should not be exposed to risk. So be aware of that. But it doesn't apply in all cases. There are a limited number, but there are some that you do need to be aware of. For example, it wouldn't apply in issues like corporate manslaughter. So if you were to organize a bungee jumping competition and you used your mum's washing line and someone was, heaven forbid, killed, you would be liable in the eyes of the law. It would not be the charity, it'd be you, because you did that. The other one is called wrongful trading. So if a charity continues to incur debt and liabilities, and the trustees of that charity reasonably know that they will not be able to pay them, then you can be exposed to legal risk personally. It's very, very rare, but it doesn't apply in 100% of the cases. Ultimately, you're responsible. And what is the difference between a profit and a non-profit? Well, actually, the legal difference is this. For a commercial company, as a director, you own the company, you are entitled to the profits. Your company works for whatever it does to make a profit selling this, that, or the other. And if the company was closed down or dissolved, any assets belonging to the company would go to you personally because you own the company. If it's a non-profit, actually it works in very much the same way, but any surpluses belong to the community. And in the event that the charity is dissolved or closed, then those assets must go to the community. So it looks like the same kind of legal structure as a commercial company, but that company is actually owned by the community, not the people running it. And for social enterprises, what that looks like is you would create a community benefit statement, which is, we exist to support the community in this way. And the asset lock is the charity that you would nominate to get the funding in the event that it ever closed. So that's how you become a legal eagle. So the first question I have for you is, what came first, Zakat or the first British Charities Act? If you want to drop in the chat, I will come back in a couple of minutes. So what do you need to think about? And I think, personally, there are three key issues. The first is, how important is it for you to be in control? As a commercial company, you're in control of everything and you own it. As a social enterprise, often known as a CIC, a community interest company, but there are other kinds. You can be a managing director, you've got a lot of control over the company, and you can sit on the board and be paid. As a charity, you're a trustee. For trustees to be paid is extremely unusual. If you're going to be a paid member of the charity, you would normally be a member of staff, such as the chief executive. If you're the chief executive, you are not in control of the charity. The trustees are. So how important is it to you that you personally have a high degree of control? And how will you generate most of your income? Lots of people think that social enterprises can't fundraise, and actually that's not true. They can. But they're mainly thought of as a kind of trading organization. Charities, obviously everybody knows that they fundraise, but charities can actually also trade as well. So both a social enterprise and a charity can fundraise and trade, but social enterprises are more about trading, charities are more about fundraising. And how valuable would charitable tax reliefs be? There's about, I think, 17 of them. The most common and best known one is gift aid. And effectively, the government gives you an extra 25p on every donation that you get from a UK taxpayer. That can amount to a lot of money if it's the local community that's funding you. You can also get tax reliefs were you to lease an office or accommodation, and there are a whole range of other reliefs around fundraising and VAT and things. So if those tax reliefs are important to you, and that is potentially a lot of your money, then you really have to be a charity to access those. So those are the three things I would ask. How much control do you need? Where are you going to get most of your income from? And how important are charitable tax reliefs? And answering those three questions will help you decide what the best structure is. So here you get it. A social enterprise or a CIC. You can be the managing director and you're on the board. You need only have 2 directors and you control it. Your income tends to be trading, but you can fundraise. You are incorporated, and that's important. And workload and flexibility in setting it up. It's very similar to a with-profit company. It's really quite flexible. You've got really quite a lot of scope about what you do, but your tax relief is limited. Whereas if you set up a charity and you want to be the CEO, you're not on the board. You are not in control. The trustees control it. Generally, your fundraising is through income, but you can actually trade as well. That's not always that well known. It does get a bit more complicated. We get into primary and secondary trading. You don't want to know. And charities are not always incorporated. I don't think that is an insurmountable barrier, but it is something to bear in mind. If you're not incorporated, I would not employ staff. I would not enter into agreement for a lease or a building because I would be personally responsible for it. And the bungee jumping with your mum's washing line, I certainly wouldn't go there. In terms of workload and flexibility, there is inevitably a lot more regulation. But the tax relief is a potential major benefit. And the way the government sees this is, if we're going to give you all this extra money from tax relief and the ability to ask people for money, then there is a penalty you must pay in ensuring that that money is properly controlled and used, and it must only be used for exclusively charitable purposes, which are much narrower than a social enterprise. So that is the cost of having a charity. This is my infographic. Yeah, I know you don't want to read it on the screen. This is one of the things in the pack up. And what it essentially does is it looks at the most common options that you have. The traffic lights show you the good and bad bits. It then explains what they're best for, and then it gives you things to watch out for. So an unincorporated association is basically a group of people who've got together with a constitution. It is great for small charities that are just doing things on a day-to-day basis. You can set it up very quickly. You can claim tax reliefs. It's great. There are 4 kinds of registered charities. The CIO comes with 2 different kinds. The foundation model, you don't have voting rights for your members, so it's arguably a bit easier to run. An association model, you do have voting rights for your members, so there's a bit more administration to it. Nowadays, that is the most recent one. It came in, I think, about 10 years ago. That is the one almost everyone chooses. A charitable company is the most common because it has been around for years and years and years and years. Little bit more complicated to set up because you need to register the Companies House and the Commission. And a charitable trust is, if you're a multimillionaire and you fancy handing some money out, you can set a trust up and you can do it that way. It's not incorporated. And a community interest company is a social enterprise. So how do you create your non-profit? So an unregistered charity is extremely quick and simple to do. There's a little toolkit in the resource pack. You basically come up with a name, you decide what you're going to do. We're going to make food available for the poor, that's fine. And you need 3 trustees, they sign it. At that point, as far as the law is concerned, you are a charity. That's it, it's done. There's about 100,000. That will allow you to open a bank account. And that's really important because funders will generally only make grants to charity registered bank accounts or charity bank accounts because it's a basic anti-fraud measure. And because you have a bank account and you're constituted, you can apply to HMRC and you can claim gift aid. So that's a really, really quick and simple thing that you can do. Constitution and 3 trustees. Oh, sorry. What I will say about an unregistered charity is you are unincorporated. And if your income goes above £5,000 a year, you then must register with the Charity Commission. So if you're just going to do something small, or if you're just starting out and you really don't know how successful this is going to be, it's a good option. A community interest company is a social enterprise. It's fairly quick and simple to set up. You do an online registration through Companies House, and you complete what's known as a CIC 36 community benefit statement. And what you're basically saying is, this is what we do, these are the people we do it for, and this is the benefit to them. It's really quite straightforward. You do need to download the CIC articles. It's about 15 pages of legal gobbledygook, but you basically just fill in the missing bits, apply online, and 2 days later, you're a CIC. Charity registration is a lot more complicated and time consuming. The final one on CICs is if you choose limited by guarantee, you can convert to a charity. So in actual fact, it keeps your options open. Charity registration is definitely a lot more complicated and time consuming. So where do we go? It costs you nothing, and it's an online application, but there are about 30 screens that you have to complete. The IT isn't great, and they want lots and lots and lots of data, and you basically just have to fill it all in. There's no other way to get around it. I've put tips and tricks in the guide that I've written, because if you go and have a cup of tea and you come back, it will allow you to keep writing for the next half hour. And when you click save, it goes, gotcha, I logged out. It doesn't tell you. So the guide will show you how to do that. And the Commission get very excited about charitable purposes. And that's your objects in your constitution. Where a lot of people go wrong is they actually write all the things I'm going to do. I'm going to open a food bank, and I'm going to have a clothing store for this, and I'm going to try and help kids be better. I'm going to try this. And they get long and complicated. And you can put things in there, they have to be legally precise. So if you put, we're going to help the community, in law, that doesn't really mean anything. It's not a definition, neither is well-being. And the more you put in there, the more questions the system will automatically generate. So what I always say to people is, when you write your objects, keep them very short, simple, and clear. What we're going to do, how we're going to do that, and who we're going to do that for. So we will promote sport by hosting football games for young people in London. It's fine. That works. But be aware, this is the limit on what you're allowed to do. What you actually choose to do yourself is a matter for the board. What you cannot do is anything outside your objects. So always write your objects that they're broad enough that there will be any changes can be accommodated by them in the future, and you don't have to go back to the Charity Commission. And there's a little video guide on how to do it. Keep them short, simple, and broad. So something along the lines of, we alleviate poverty by making grants to disadvantaged people in London, or the southeast of England, or whatever you choose. And there's a big difference between advancing and doing. And it took me a while to tumble to this. If you say to the Charity Commission you are doing education or any kind of health related work or something like research, they see that in the context of professional services being delivered. So if you're delivering education, they want to know about teacher qualifications, they want to know how the curriculum's structured, they want to know about anything like that, and they will ask for a lot of detail. If, on the other hand, you're advancing education by making grants to local schools for the purchase of books, blah, 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 whatever, that's okay, because you don't need to be an educational expert. So if you're having workshops for young people to warn them, for example, about the online risks to them, or maybe health matters, helping them understand their health better. What you do is you run a workshop to help them understand their health better. You get a local GP or a mental health nurse or a professional to come in and deliver that. And you don't need to have specific expertise. So what you say to the commission is, we will have qualified medical professionals come in to do our health talks, and that's fine. If you say to the commission, we will deliver a health program for young people, they will want absolutely everything rolled in there. How do you know they're qualified? How can you keep them safe? How can you do that? So think about how you word that. And the mentality behind it. They're essentially taking a tick box approach to what you're asking, to what you say you're doing. So what you really want to do is help them tick those boxes. So if you're working with a local statutory school, that's a good box. If you work to quality standard this, or if you've got specific relationships with experts in this area, or the trustees have got particular expertise or knowledge around this, all of those things help. And what you're doing is you're helping them to understand that you really know what you're doing. Where an awful lot of people go wrong is when they complete this, they put very little in. So we're going to run health education programs for young people in London by having classes. And bang, all the questions will come back to you. How are you going to do that? Who's going to do that? How are they going to be qualified? So what you say is, we will be delivering health education classes for young people around how to promote and protect their mental health in light of the coronavirus impact. We will be delivering these by bringing in experts from the local GP surgery or the mental health provision services, and we will make them open to everyone. In the event there was any concern about an individual, we would help him or her understand how they could go and how they could access mental health services from the National Health Service. Bang, that's answered all the questions. Policies are very useful. If you're making grants, you should have a grant making policy. If you are working with vulnerable people, and all children are defined as vulnerable people, you do want to get something like a safeguarding policy. They check about 12 different aspects of safeguarding, and if you're grant making, they have a whole series of checks that they want to see. If you're doing that and you're going, oh no, how am I going to do that? If you get in contact with me via Aisha, I will send you a generic grant making policy, or I will send you a safeguarding policy, or anything like that. So if you haven't got them and you need them, just ask and you can have it. Opening a bank account. That opening line, all banks, and I mean all the mainstream banks, offer free community bank accounts, which sounds fantastic, but not anymore. Most of them really aren't terribly helpful. They're not making any money out you, they're not being paid any commission, you are really not top of their priority list. And people often have trouble with the banks. So if you're going to go and see a bank, I always say to people, check the website first, because I've had someone phone me up and said, I'm standing here in the bank and they will only open bank accounts for registered charities. That's what they're telling me. And I said, put them on. I said, well, I'm looking at your website, and your website is absolutely crystal clear that any community group with the Constitution can do this. And then had to give in. So that they're not, if you have a local bank and you have a good working relationship with the staff, or if you're involved in business and you're a business bank account customer, you're more valuable to them, you might try that. It's very difficult. Some of the banks that I have heard people speak well about are Metro Bank and the Co-op. That's no guarantee, but I've heard people speak well about them. And it is much, much worse since COVID. Many people are really, really struggling to get the banks to open those bank accounts. What you actually need is you need your constitution. If you're an unregistered charity, your constitution is just as good, and they'll want 3 trustees. They want all the usual stuff to show that your home address, council tax bills and things. There is a DIY guide on how to do that. And you don't need a bank account to register with the Charity Commission. But to register with HMRC to get gift aid, and for the funders to pay you, you do need one. So what I usually say to people is, look, this isn't a high priority issue for you, but it's probably something you want to start fairly early. Charity tax relief. Where am I? We lose huge amounts. I'm Scottish. we're a particularly mean race. It's an ethnic thing. I hate the feel of a pound slipping through my fingers, and if it's a government pound, I doubly hate it. So this is a bit of a personal thing for me. We failed to claim 600 million a year in gift aid. That's only one of about 16 tax reliefs we're entitled to claim, and every single one of those tax reliefs you can claim up to 4 years retrospectively. If you add that all up, that is billions. And we're a sector that's desperately short of funding. We're just not applying for it. And we really should. So why is that happening? There are lots of different types of gift aid. Everybody knows the one about getting your donations, etc., etc., etc. But there are a range of others. Yes, there is a gift aid guide in the pack-up. The one that many, many small charities lose out on is the small donations scheme. So if you want to claim gift aid, I make a donation of £100 to your charity. I sign a gift aid declaration form. You can then claim gift aid on that. Obviously, if you're doing a bucket collection in the mosque or something, you're not going to ask everybody to sign them, so people don't claim gift aid on it. There is a relaxation in the rules. So if you're doing a bucket collection, as long as you've got the total and when it's banked, you can actually claim gift aid on the whole collection. And if that's one of your main sources of income and you're doing it on a regular basis, that can actually be quite a lot of money. To claim it, you have to be a charity, or if there's anyone here who's a sports club, community amateur sports club, they can claim gift aid. You do not need to be a registered charity. If you are registering as a charity, HMRC will not let you register with them until you've got your charity registration. But you can claim retrospectively. So if you're sitting there thinking, I've had people making donations to my charity for absolutely ages, and I haven't claimed any of this money, there is a get out. Because if you download the gift aid declaration form, and there's a link in the guide, of course, it's when they sign it, there is a section in there that allows you to claim up to 4 years retrospectively. So if they sign that, you can't claim for the donation they've just given you. You can claim for that one and every donation they've given you over the last 4 years. And now, if someone's giving you some reasonable sized donations, that's actually worth doing. And you have to register with HMRC. Oh, I haven't included that. How do you register with HMRC? It's an online application form. What you do need to make sure you do is that you hang on to all your gift aid declarations. You need to get them signed. You need to keep hold of your Charity Commission application form, which will be sent back to you. And that application form will include all the detail that you require to register with HMRC. There is a register with HMRC guide, obviously. Oh yes, I asked what came first, Zakat or the Charities Act? I haven't looked at the chat. My guess is everybody said Zakat. You're all biased, but you're right anyway. The first UK Charities Act was Queen Elizabeth I in 1601. When did Zakat start? I'm not sure if anyone actually knows, but seeing it must have been about around 600 AD, I suspect that's about 800 years earlier, so I don't suppose there's any argument about that. Now, getting money from people, as I said, we're Scottish, I am anyway, and it's something we like doing, is getting money out of people. But you can't just ask people for money, because they won't give it to you. You actually have to engage people. You have to talk to people who are interested in your cause. You have to talk to people in a way about what matters to them. Now, one of the big problems with the charity sector is the charity sector lives on transmit. It's forever talking at people about what it wants. And this applies exactly the same with funding bids. I chaired a grant making body for about 10 years, and I used to get applications. We're this charity, we want this, we want to do that, this is the money that we want. And I would sit there and I would think to myself, I'm really not interested. It's my money. What I want to know is the difference that you're going to make to people's lives that matters to me. That's what I want to know, because it's my decision about where that money goes. You need to do two things to convince me. The first thing is you have to make the case. Is there a need for this? So if you say, we're running an older person centre, we're having Sunday afternoon teas, or we're having, having a bit of a get together after prayers, fine. But why would I give you money for that? If instead what you're saying is this is one of the most deprived boroughs in London, the older people are isolated in their homes, they've been stuck there with COVID, it's really, really difficult for them. We've got people in our community who are not comfortable about going out and engaging people, and loneliness and access to help and support is really, really difficult for them. And what we're doing is we're giving them a fun afternoon. It's actually really helpful to get them to engage people in their community. And if they got a bit stuck because they can't report there's a problem with the boiler, or they're not sure about something, or they're worried about COVID, we can chat to them, we can really help them. And I would look at that and I go, I can see the difference you're making to their lives. I can see there's a real need for this to be done. And that will begin to convince me. But you also need emotional engagement. People do not give money to business cases or arguments. People give money to people. I remember reading an application. It was awful. It was really badly written. I had no justification at all. And there was a one-liner about a young girl. And it said, this young girl was in this situation. This is what we did. And this is the difference it made to her life. And I said to the board secretary, not accepting that bid, but they're definitely getting money. I need you to go back to them and talk to them about how we make this work. So how are you going to find those people? How are you going to engage them? So the first question you need to ask yourself is, why am I communicating with them? And lots of charities just chuck stuff out there. We like this, we like, no. What is it you're trying to achieve? Do you want them to give you money? Do you want them to use their influence so they can give you access to other people who may be able to help you? And for example, the imam is not a rich man, but the imam possibly knows a whole load of people in the local area who may be able to help you in one or more ways. So if you were to communicate with him, what you're trying to do is you're trying to help him understand in the ways that he can help you to help people in the community. You may want people to volunteer. Would you come along and help me run the food bank? Or you just want to make them aware, we've opened a halal food bank, it's now available. We just want you to know that so that you can come and use it. So what is the purpose of your communication? If you're not clear on that, everything else will fail. And who are you communicating with? Is this message for the funders? Is it for the local community? Are you talking to your existing supporters? Or maybe local politicians, people in the council or things? Or is it other people? Who is your audience? Who do you want to speak to? And what are you going to say that matters to them? So when I had that awful bid, what they said about that little girl really, really mattered to me. They got that message across and I absolutely bought it. But it's what is important to them and what they think that matters. So when you communicate with them, you need to put yourself in their shoes. I've seen it often, quite a lot with young people, where older people like me are putting things out and talking about older people stuff. It doesn't work. You need to talk to them about what they're interested in. And how will you reach and engage them? Within the charity sector, again and again and again, I hear people saying to me, we cannot get trustees from ethnic minority groups. We just done our best, can't do it. And I talked to someone and I said, what? I said, so when you were looking for your trustees, did you put it in the Daily Telegraph asking for people with experience of P&L control? And he went, oh, yes, yes, yes. I said, what did you expect? You weren't reaching. If you wanted to reach young people in ethnic minority groups, they're not going to be reading the job section of the Daily Telegraph. And I said to him, you're in a city of 8 million people. Half of them are women. I think something like 14% of London are ethnic minority. And then there's the disabled, and then there's the young people. And you're telling me out of that 8 million, you can't find anyone. Why don't you ask someone when you're on the tube? Because it's full of them. And they were not using the right way. So when I was running a medium large dementia charity, and we were looking for volunteers, most of our volunteers were very much older people. And that worked really well for us. So we would use things like posters in the post office, because that's where people went, or Tesco's. If you want to reach people in general, Facebook's really good. If you're trying to reach the local business community, there will be a local chamber of commerce or the Lions or people like that where business people are involved, and getting an invite to there to actually talk to them about your work can be really good. And then you have social media. Twitter's fairly generic. Facebook is for families and lots of people. If you want to find the young people, you're much better going to places like Snapchat. And if what you've got and what you're doing is really visual and really effective, Instagram's very good because it's a visual platform. So you need to think, where are my audience? What are they doing? What's important to them? And then you find that way to reach them. So when I was running the London Irish Centre, we did a lot on Instagram. We young girls doing Irish dancing and big men with beards playing guitars and things, absolutely perfect on Instagram. I now run a digital toolkit, and photographs of a digital toolkit don't really work on visual social media, so you won't see much of me on there. So think about how and where you're going to reach them. And how will you grow your audience? You don't get instant audiences. You actually really have to put time and effort into it. And you're all busy, you're volunteers. So 2 ways I've done that. One of them was at the London Irish Centre. And what I did is I found champions. I had a doctor in the NHS. I had a young woman who ran her own business. I had someone else in marketing. And what I said to them is, I want you to follow us on each of our social media platforms, and I want you to like them, and I want you to reshare them into your own networks, and I want you to engage people by dropping nice comments in. 12 people, all volunteers, virtually no time, and suddenly we were being projected into a whole range of different audiences, and then the followers began to come to us. Another way of doing it is to use media groups. We open our gardens for the church every year just to raise some money. We don't get a lot, but what? And it was always done by posters. And I said, well, actually, let me have a go on social media for you. And I joined all the local social media groups. We've got Aylesbury, Aston Clinton, Wendover, Buckinghamshire. We've got all sorts of stuff. And I joined all those groups, and I dropped posts into each of them. And the total numbers in those groups was 30,000. It took me about half an hour. And that year, we had more people than we'd ever seen before. And everyone was going, how did we do that? Social media. Find easy ways to do these things. And then people will follow you. Right, what's next? 10 to 11. How do we find funders? The bit everybody was waiting for. Right, how to find funding. Charity excellence, I'm Scottish, as I've often said. Finding money is a speciality of my race. And charity excellence has its own funding finder database. It's slightly different to the other ones. For a start, we won't ask you for £400 to join it, it's completely free. And because it's my database and I can do what I like with it, there are categories for BAME, there are categories for women, there are categories for disabled people, there are categories for food, because I think those people are important. And what it does is it has all its own funders, but it links to free funder databases and funding lists across the globe. It links to at least 100,000 different funders, and you just click through. And it's been designed to be simple to use. the people who really work with charity excellence are not your big professional, well-paid funders, fundraisers. It tends to be small community groups. You're not fundraisers. You maybe don't use databases. English may be a second language. So it's designed to be very quick and simple to use. There are other ones, not as good as mine. Charity excellence, you guys are really hard pressed. You don't have time and you're not fundraisers. So what I've done is I've created about 50 thematic funder lists. So there is one for unregistered charities. There's another one for small charities. There's one that I've called less popular causes. I went round in circles with BME and BAME and BAMER, and whichever one I chose, somebody didn't like it. So I called it less popular causes. So asylum seekers, refugees, ethnic minority groups, people in criminal justice, the people that often have difficulty raising funding. There are funders out there who absolutely get that and who want to help you. And that list is there. I uploaded it yesterday afternoon. I've substantially increased it. It's up to about 100. You'll also find things like sport, social welfare, health. There's loads and loads and loads. And what you do is you just download the list you want. There's a couple of lines on each funder. You click the funder's name and it takes you through to the website. So it's really sort of nice and quick and simple and easy to use because you haven't got a lot of time. Newsletters, Foundation for Social Improvement, Small Charities Coalition, AWN, obviously, they should have been first because they're the best, but my mistake. And they're local and regional ones. So if, you know, Manchester Funding Central is absolutely brilliant. If you're in the Manchester area, they keep it all up to date. So you can sign up for these newsletters or bits and pieces, and they will come out and they'll just keep you aware of the funders that are coming up. So that's a nice, easy way to do it. Charity excellence, at the start of the outbreak, it was really tough for the smaller groups. When I built the database, I put BAME on as a search category, and before I launched it, I took it off. I couldn't find any. There were no funders for BAME groups at all. That thankfully has all changed. But what I did at the time is I started a weekly email that when I found all the COVID funders, it went out to all these groups in advance. It just gave you a couple of days. So I send that out. People are welcome to join it if they wish. And paid databases. If you want the big professional stuff, there are a significant number of them. I mentioned Directory of Social Change. It is £400 a year. It is a very slight piece of kit, and they're a charity. So I'm always happy to promote charity. There's also grants online, but they're professionals. So I've mentioned them, but I won't tell you any more about them because why give money to commercial companies? And also social media groups. There are a whole series of social media out there and a lot of fundraising groups, and they're really helpful. So if you're looking for IT, or if you're saying, oh, I'm trying to do this, or I'm trying to do that, if you drop into the group and say, look, I'm trying to find funders to do this or that and the other with, there are loads of people on there will say, oh, have you tried this? Have you tried that? There was one this morning. Someone says, I just can't get IT. I'm working with disadvantaged groups. There's families at home. You know, they've got 3 kids and they've got 1 smartphone between the 3 of them. They are losing out educationally in a really difficult way. How can I find some IT funders? And people were coming back with suggestions. Of course, I've got an IT funder list, so I told them about that. I have about 50 social media groups, part of the resource pack up. So if you're engaged in fundraising and you want to learn more and you want to engage with people and ask questions, it's a very good way to do it. The sector is very good that way. People are very good about sharing. So where can we get you some loot? Community foundations, there are 46, 1 in each county, pardon me, and 2 in London. And what they are charities that exist to support charities in their local area. Often they will not mind if you're not a registered charity, and often they've access to little niche pots of money here and there. They're a very good starting place if you're a fairly new community group. What I have is that link there will take you to a community foundations map and it will let you find your own. Local councils. Most of them have pots of money for local community groups. It's maybe about £500, but it's £500 and it can be really quite quick and easy to apply. That link will take you to a postcode checker. You drop your postcode in and it will find the council funding nearest to you. Police and crime commissioners have a proceeds of crime and they have a pot of money that they can spend. That link will take you to a map of all the police and crime commissioners in the UK. I will say that sometimes they will focus them on things that are related to them. So they may look at something like domestic violence, or it may be knife crime. So it's not as open as the other ones, but it's always worth looking at. And local trusts. Certainly with the outbreak of COVID, what I found is everybody stampeded to all the big well-known trusts, and you were in a very, very long queue. If you've got small local trusts, they might actually be a lot more suitable for you. So the trust I ran is we made a load of money at a council contract, and we decided that ethically the only thing we could do is give it back to the community. So we operate in Aylesbury Vale, and we will only fund people in Aylesbury Vale. And not many people know about us. And there are lots and lots and lots of these little trusts. So that can be quite useful. Funding Finder will run some general searches for you. The community foundations are very useful, or you can run a search on the Charity Commission website. It's a bit clunky, but if you select primary role is grant funding, it's just a box you tick. You can choose any county in the UK or any borough in London, and it will run searches for the grant funders in your local area. And that's a good way to find them. And often they're not as well known. And COVID funders. The good thing about COVID funding is it tends to be much simpler applications and much quicker turnarounds. So if you're a small community group that's not used to writing sort of fundraising applications, that can be a good place to start. And many of them do not require you to be a registered charity. They're actually pretty good for that. All the latest COVID funders are uploaded onto my database every week. So what you'll see is a massive spike in visitors every Monday morning as they all pile in to get them. Now, what can you do to zero in on funding more effectively? Oh, sorry. Pick ones that are suitable for you. So you can't compete in terms of the quality of funding applications with big professional charities. But many funders will say, I'm only going to fund small charities, not interested in the big guys. Or many local trusts will say, we're only going to fund people in our local area. And that gives you much more of a fighting chance. There is much more money has recently become available for ethnic minority groups. Most of it is COVID related. So that's always worth a look at. But what you will find with registered mainstream funders is many of them are now prioritizing the ethnic minority community. So what you may see is we're going to make funding available for older people to support them in alleviating isolation. And then as you read down through it, it will then say, we will give priority to disabled groups, ethnic minority groups. So if they're funding in your area and they're only funding small charities and they're prioritizing ethnic minority groups, you're really beginning to get that fit. That's a much better kind of funder for you to apply to. Oops, I'm running out of time. And here's a couple I pulled up. Magic Little Grants. It's only £500, opens on Monday, but there are 8 funding areas in 2021, and which, including marginalised groups and promoting equality, is one of them. And awards for all, and I flagged in there it's a national lottery, is 3,000 to 10,000, and it's for community and voluntary groups. There is no deadline for applications. It's pretty straightforward and it's pretty easy to get to. I think Magic Little Grants are the People Postcodes Lottery, so that's a lottery as well. I appreciate that both of them are basically proceeds of gambling, and that for some of you that may not be acceptable to you. I totally understand that, but I offer them. If you're stuck on that, seeing as I've gone, yeah, I give a briefing to the Muslim population and I put up 2 gambling funders. I missed that one, sorry. Right, if you're looking for more funders and you're looking for something specific, you email me, I'm going to find some that are appropriate for you. And other things to think about. Now, many of the big corporates will have foundations and funding. And some of them give away really quite a lot of money. Now, some of those ones will say, we will have a 2-year partnership with cancer research and we will give them £10 million a year. You're not going to get a look in. And others will have their controls at head office. So if you try to get funding, you have to write to head office and go in the queue. But there are actually quite a few that delegate down authority to support the local community to their local stores. And these are some of them. So John Lewis, for example, any John Lewis, if you're next to one, will have its own community champion. And they will be able to give you small amounts of funding. They will be able to find volunteers. And often those volunteers can be quite skilled. So when I redid the entrance to one of our dementia units, John Lewis gave me their, you know, when you walk in and everything's really sparkly and looks lovely, well, if special people make it look sparkly and lovely. And what they basically did is came into my dementia unit and did that to the front entrance. And it was incredible. It was so much nicer. And, you know, that's expert help. They will also offer people end-of-line goods. So if they're coming down to the end of a line and they've only got a few left, they may actually be happy to give those to you. And if you're really, 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 really lucky, they also do 6 months secondments to charities, but I wouldn't imagine they'll do that for a very small group. B&Q will give you end-of-line materials. People like Nando's are happy to provide food for food banks and things. Pret are very much the same, but I think they also do volunteers. And Wilco will do things like, oh, I don't know, gift cards, items like that. So even if all you're doing is having a raffle, or God, I'm back on gambling. If all you're doing is actually giving things away or having Christmas presents at your old people's afternoon event, then in actual fact, you may find you can get stuff from Wilco. And that's me. And how am I time-wise? I'm not quite there. Right, I did promise I would show the system if there was time. So if I do this very quickly, Aisha, if you interrupt me, if you want this to stop or I've gone too far, let me know.
Oh, you carry on, Ian.
Right, so this is the system. Essentially what you do is you come in and you click all the boxes, how big you are, how many volunteers you have, whether you're doing fundraising, whether you're working with older people, and it will build a complete set of questionnaires for you. These are really, really simple to use. So you will get a statement in plain English about what you should see, and you go, totally nailed it. No, we're not doing that at all. Or, yeah, it's okay. Absolutely unimportant. Actually, it's really important. It's so much so. And then you click next. That's all you do. And you can complete the entire thing in under a morning. Why does that matter? Because here is free help and support. I have found 200 organizations that give free things to charities. If you want back-end app development, there's someone will do that. If you would like stickers designed, there's someone will do that. There's free legal advice, there's free HR advice, there's all sorts of stuff. There's mentoring, there's consultancy, everything. And what the system will do is display relevant ones for you whenever you're scoring things. Under here are the downloads, and these are external links. So these are all my material because I'm a sad man. So communicating with individual donors, that's a good idea. You click it. Oh, it's so free. It takes ages to load. And then it'll give you that. And why am I showing you this one? We've processed, identify and assess, engage potential future funders, funder lists. This is what everybody wants. And these are the funder lists. So if we go less popular causes, it will download that. You open it up. There are all the funders. If you want to look at Sports England tackling inequality, there you go. and there's the funder, and you can have a look at the funder and you can make an application. Everybody goes mad for these. So that's what it does. It links you to free stuff, and this part of the income questionnaire allows you to download. This is Funding Finder. So what I've done is connected it to all sorts. So what you can do is, let's do London. Let's pretend we're all metropolitan people. There are all the funders in London. So if you want to look at new and COVID-19 grants, there you go, and then you can apply for it. So it's kept very, very quick and simple. If anyone is working overseas, it does work on an entirely global basis. But if I choose UK-wide, if I then go down to ethnic minority groups, there you go. There are all the people that will fund ethnic minority groups. Tudor Trust are very good. Very, very, very good. They support the people that need supported, and they support you with core funding. Big fan of them. So that's what that does. On the other hand, I upload it and update it every single week. So every Monday morning, everyone comes in and runs recent editions, and these are all the new funders in the last month. That's basically what it does. So that's us. And it's on to questions and answers.
Ian, I just absolutely loved it. I think it was really useful. I'm finding it really useful. And I think it's always nice to have that going back to basics, having a rundown of what is needed. And literally just reading the comments in the chat box, it's just people are finding it very useful. So that was brilliant. Thank you very much. Over to the questions that people have been asking. First question is that you mentioned that you don't need a bank account to register with Charity Commission.
No.
I thought that to have a registered charity, you need a bank account. Can you please clarify this point? Thank you.
To register with the Charity Commission, you don't need a bank account. It's not part of the process. If you have a bank account, you have to declare it. But you do need a bank account to register with HMRC for gift aid. And if you don't have a bank account, then how are you going to get funding and donations? So in a practical sense, yes, you need one. But if you've got stuck and you're at the end of a really long queue to open your bank account at the moment, that won't stop you making a charity application.
Okay. And by the way, just to sort of mention, if you have any questions, I would suggest that you write it in the chat box. Either myself or Fatima will pick it up, so we will obviously share your questions. Another question around accounts is some banks are not opening new accounts and some are suggesting 12 weeks. How could you go about applying for funding without the account? Does this mean that we have to wait?
Probably pretty much. It's a basic anti-fraud measure is that money should be paid into the charity's bank account. There may be funders that will accept it, and there may be some who will relax it because they know there's such problems. I think you would have to ask the funder. It's a problem. There's no question about that. There is potentially, if you had contacts with a charity that does have a bank account, you might be able to say to the funder the money's being paid into their bank account on our behalf and they will spend the money for us. That might be an option, but I'm not sure how well that would work.
I think it's good practice really to have a bank account, and it's just covered due diligence from the funder's perspective as well. But you know, the charity, you'll have to set up a bank account eventually anyway, hopefully.
And it's a pain. I mean, we didn't have a bank account, and I used my bank account, and what I was having to do was to take my bank statements each month and line out all the things that were personal and then hand my personal statements over to the board so that I could show them that everything that put into the charity was reflected. And it's not good, but it was the best we could do at that point.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sorry, just some more questions. If setting up a charity which will aim to operate in this country as well as overseas, Are there any additional requirements for being able to operate abroad?
Oh no. HMRC tax regulations. Ouch. Yeah. The Commission gets very suspicious about everyone. If you're operating overseas, they will want to see that you've got controls and forgive me, controls and processes in place that will demonstrate that that's been done properly and effectively. The other one is HMRC have some draconian tax regulations that you must be able to demonstrate the charitable purpose. For that, you need reporting and things like that. And the Commission will require you to use recognised money transfer services. So it is a bit of a pain. You can get around it. If you're applying to do that to the Commission, if you email me, I will send you a grant agreement that ticks all the boxes for them and for HMRC. Because if I'm going to take £10,000 and send it to Pakistan, and I'm sending to someone over there, the Commission wants to know, how do you know that that money has been spent on that school? And how do you know that that money has been spent for the charitable purposes for which you were given it? So you need an agreement about what that work is. You need an agreement about how we'll do it. You need reports back from them that show that that work's been carried out and has been done properly. And that's what the Commission's looking at.
Good stuff. Can you share a little bit about sports clubs? Does it help to be registered as a charity? Can gift aid be collected without registering as a charity? What are the legal entities a sports club be?
You can be a charity. There's nothing to stop you. I mean, Sport England is technically a charity under Royal Charter. Many sports clubs are what known as community CASCs, Community Amateur Sports Clubs. Now, that is not a charity. It's a registration with HMRC. And it is very, very similar to a charity, but there are differences. So both can claim gift aid, both get the tax reliefs, that's fine. But a CASC is also around the things like paying members. It gets quite complicated from a tax perspective. That's something you would need to talk to an accountant about. But in terms of claiming gift aid, etc., they can both do it, but you need to think about that. If you're thinking about it, Sport England have a set up guidance. I think they call it the sports box or something like that. And they've got a lot of very good practical plain English guidance in there.
Okay. Just to let everybody know that we will be sharing the slides, and which will have Ian's contact details on there as well, and of course the resource pack that Ian mentioned, so that will be shared once the event is over. Another question is, what do you recommend? We have a support advice service for women and now want to set up FAST, maybe as a social organisation?
Again, it comes back to things like control and funding. If your funding is going to be largely through fundraising, and things like the gift aid would be really important to you, it would be better to be a charity. Now, you can set up as an unregistered charity this afternoon using that little toolkit, but your income mustn't exceed £5,000, although you can register with HMRC. Charity registration has actually got quite a bit quicker. There's a bit of time and effort to pull it all together, but in actual fact, I've had a charity registration back in a day. It takes longer usually, but it can be quicker. There's one on here about finding funders on charity excellence. A lot of people who are working overseas are really, really struggling to get funding. The funding has been horrifically cut. What I will say is that charity excellence is global funding. If you haven't been on since I've launched Funding Finder, go back on, because I've uploaded an awful lot more. And I will also say this, if you're fundraising overseas, yes, there is the UK, and yes, there is the US, but they are not the only funders. There are actually a surprising number of funders out there in the big wide world. So when COVID sprang up, the Islamic Bank poured a huge amount of money into COVID support, but nobody ever heard anything about that in the UK. So be aware, there are actually people out there doing a lot of good work. So for example, in Charity Excellence, I have a list of 14 Dutch foundations that fund international organizations. So when you're looking for international funding, don't get bore-sighted on specific areas. So if you're working in Africa, if a funder says, I work in Africa, I will tag it for Africa. If a funder just says, I will fund international organizations, I will tag it for international, but I won't tag it for Africa. So make sure you broaden your search out.
Excellent. Just conscious of the time as well. So the next question is, I've tried setting my charity twice, or I believe registering maybe, and with Charity Commission, and on both occasions it has been rejected. Is there a support centre to assist me in registering my organisation?
A support centre? I'm not sure of one, but if you email what they said to me, you will have had an email back saying we're rejecting you on the following grounds. I'm quite happy to have a call with you and walk you through what they've said. And if it's you're missing safeguarding policies or something, I'll give you one.
Okay, excellent. Also, it was mentioned that if funds are over £5,000, that you need to register as a charity. By 5,000, is that in donations or income? Also, if funds have been paid into a personal account, can gift aid be claimed?
If it's income, whatever you've got the money, if you go above £5,000, you have to register. Why did they pick that? I've no idea. I think it's way back in ancient times is probably the best answer for that. Can you claim gift aid on funds paid into a personal bank account? The gift aid is payable for a donation made by a UK taxpayer. So as long as that person's a UK taxpayer and you're registered with HMRC, you're entitled to claim it.
Okay. Funding has always been a huge problem for our charity for a while now, and we're raising for the less privileged children. Are funders on Charity Excellence basically for US and UK? Because I've been on the website for a while now and couldn't find one for Nigeria.
No, I significantly expanded it. You can search for Africa, but as I said, if you search for international, you will find funders that will consider funding Africa. They just haven't specifically said so. Now, you can get funding. In actual fact, if we've got a second, I will show you very quickly how to do it. So if we go on to the Charity Commission website, they've got Find a Charity. Oh, it's an awful system. You click the advanced search. So there are a whole series of things you can just click to select. So the first thing is I want to make sure they're registered. Obviously, that would be really good. And you can begin to choose who they'll support. So you can refine this down: animals, architecture, disability. There's got some weird things. I mean, people said to me, why did you produce a list of grant makers for people of a particular ethnic or racial origin? And the answer is because it was the Charity Commission's definition. It's the only one I had. But main ways of carrying out purpose is grant making. Now you can choose England or parts of England. If you're in London, you can change. You can choose your borough. So those little local funders. You can also do the same for Wales, and you can search by country. So there's Nigeria. 228 matches. Now that's not against disability. That is literally people that fund Nigeria. If I go along to the bottom and export the results, this is horrible. I warn you. They give you all sorts of complete gobbledygook.
Excellent.
Huh.
I have another question as well. Just a few minutes left. Is where can I find templates for policies and other things that I might need to help me set up?
They're all on Charity Excellence. What I do is in the relevant bits, so if it's asking you about people or data protection, I've uploaded a whole range of policies there. If you're looking for HR, contracts or people-related policies, Cranfield Trust run a service called HRNet, and it will connect you with professional HR people, and it has a whole document base, and they will give you all the documents. They'll be far better than mine. There are other sources. So if you're an international charity, for example, the Small IDO Facebook group actually has a Google Drive full of all sorts of incredibly useful stuff. So it is out there, but you probably have to search. You can pay for them. Personally, I don't like paying for things. My Excel spreadsheet won't open, but effectively it will give you an Excel spreadsheet with the website and the telephone number, and those are 228 grant makers who consider funding Nigeria. If you selected disability or women or something, it would obviously reduce them down, so it'd be a much better focus. And if you're UK based, you can do exactly the same for your county or London or areas in Wales.
Do I need funding before I start a charity?
No. Well, that's not quite true. The older ones, the trust and the charitable company, you must have either £5,000 or a promise from a grant maker of £5,000. If you open a CIO, you do not need any income at all.
Okay. Do you recommend I get an accountant when recruiting staff?
Sorry?
Do you recommend I get an accountant when recruiting staff?
An accountant?
Yeah, you have to get an accountant before I recruit staff members.
An accountant?
Yeah.
Why would you need? I mean, if you're going to recruit staff members and you're going to set up PAYE and HMR and registration in NI and stuff like that, you can do it yourself. But an accountant would actually, tax can get really, really complicated. An accountant's very good. An alternative course is to engage people on a different basis. So if you're to engage someone as a freelancer, you're paying them for their services, either as a sole trader or as a company, and you don't need to get involved in tax and HMRC at all, and you're not locked into them on a long-term basis. So I use freelancers a great deal. So if I want maybe a bit of design work for a brochure or something, I will go online, I will engage a freelancer. There was a lass did my logo, and everybody loves the logo, and she did it in her bedroom on an Apple Mac, and it cost me £100. I like freelancers, so there are other ways to do it.
Just the final question, because we've got 5 minutes left, is that in terms of conflict of interest, it's a massive area to discuss, but what are the potential areas that would be of conflict for a charity?
A conflict of interest, the one I actually I had created a slide on zakat. I was trying to learn more about Islam, and for payment of zakat, and I drew parallels between that and the Charities Act. You may not make payments to a close relation, so a son or a sister or your parents or your wife, and that conflict of interest works in the same way. So if you're a trustee, any benefit to you must be incidental. It is so small that it's irrelevant. You can be a beneficiary, but you must not gain from your position as a trustee. Now, if you are going to be involved in decisions that affects you or a family member, so if you were going to make your wife the chief executive, you as a trustee would be conflicted, and you would have to be excluded from all decisions relating to your wife and her position as chief executive. And that would be permanent, and it must be. And you must have a minimum of 2 unconflicted trustees. So I had a Pakistani gentleman. He was setting up, he wanted his wife on the board, he wanted his kids, because he wanted them to understand the importance of charity and what it was, and he was using that as a way of helping them understand that. And I said, the commission will not accept that, because you're all related to each other. And he said, but it's my money and I'm giving it away. And I said, I absolutely get that, and I think you're doing wonderful stuff, but you must have 2 unconflicted trustees. You must manage conflict of interest in that way.
Brilliant advice. Just going to wrap it up now. If you have any questions, please send it to us at info@awn.org.uk. We can pass it on to Ian. However, as mentioned before, we will be sending these slides, and hopefully you'll be able to see back this event. We'll send you the recording for it as well, and of course the resource pack as well. We'd love to hear from you as well in terms of feedback. You will be sent a link shortly, and we just want to know what you thought about this event. And do you want some more? Do you want us to focus on a particular area that will be beneficial to you? Because obviously at this stage, everybody's starting and we're still learning. I'm still learning as well, which is fantastic. So it would be good to know what kind of events we can organise for you. But Ian, thank you so much. You've been fantastic, and it's been very enlightening in many ways. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for inviting me. I think the Muslim community in the UK, the charitable work you do is exceptional, and the attitude about making sure that money gets to the front line is if the rest of the sector learned that, we would be a much better sector.
Yes, definitely. Over like 130 million now that we raised during Ramadan. So this is a good time to think about setting up your charity and asking for those money during Ramadan, which is great. Thank you.
And a final one from me: in the resource pack are a whole series of fundraising platforms. There are actually a number of Muslim specific platforms springing up, particularly around things like zakat. And I've included them in there. So if you're thinking of Ramadan and fundraising, they might be worth having a look at.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Have a good day, and hopefully see you soon at our next event, inshallah. Take care.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Bye.